Hey, do me a favor. Welcome everybody who's joining us online and on demand and wherever all around the world. Thanks so much for being here. And we're glad you're with us. My name's Matt. I'm one of the pastors here at Santa Cruz Bible Church. We're so glad you're with us on this Sunday. And today you picked a good one because we're kicking off a brand new series called Hopes and Dreams. And this is going to be about the life of Joseph in the book of Genesis. Now, if you're familiar with the story or you're not familiar with the story, we hope over these next few weeks you're going to be encouraged and inspired and find God's guidance for whatever you're facing right now. But to kick this off, I want to tell you about something that happened to me when I was younger. How many of you rode the school bus when you were young? Just throw a hands. That's a lot of people, man. That's a lot of us. How many of you ever fell asleep on the school bus? Show of hands. A few of you did. Okay. Sometimes those rides, if you ever had to ride the school bus as a kid, those rides were really long. There's a lot of stops, right? And you get tired. You know, it's after school and all that stuff, and you just get sleepy, right? But what's cool about that is if a kid dozes off and their stop comes, then what happens is everyone on the school bus yells at the kid to wake up so that they'll get off at their stop. So it's kind of like the bus has a built-in alarm clock. So I never was worried about falling asleep on the bus because I knew, the alarm clock will go off, which is 30-something people screaming at you to get off the bus. So no worries, right? So one afternoon, I was really, really tired, and I just laid down in the seat and just went to sleep. I was like, I'm done, right? And, when I went to sleep, it was a bus full of people and, kids throwing stuff and, like whatever school bus stuff, right? And I wasn't worried because I knew the bus has the alarm clock, right? It'll go off when my stop hits, no worries. Well, when I woke up, there was no one on the bus. And it was dark outside. And I'm like, what's going on? And it was very disorienting. I'm in this parked bus with no one in it, and it's dark. And I'm thinking, am I dreaming? Like, this is so strange, right? So I'm like, well, I guess I should get off the bus. I don't even know where I am. I just look and there's trees everywhere. I don't even know where I am. And so I, pull the big lever thing and open the door, right? And the bus is parked in front of this house. In fact, it's the only thing out there. It's just kind of trees and nothing and then this house. And I'm like, well, I guess I'm going to this house. I wake up on this bus. I knock on this door. Again, it's night. And I'm just kind of waiting at this door. There's nowhere else to go. This is creepy. And I hear this family eating dinner inside, and then finally a person comes to the door, and it's the bus driver. And he looks at me, and I look at him, and he's thinking, oh, crap. And this is the 80s, okay? So there was no cell phones, nothing like that. So, kids just got left places all the time, and it was kind of like, fend for yourself, like, figure it out. You know what I mean? This is life, you know what I mean? So he starts the bus, takes me home to my parents, who I'm not sure had noticed that I was not there. Now, y'all, I'm an only child, and they're eating dinner, and then the bus pulls up in the night, and they're like, I thought he wasn't eating, it's just the weirdest thing ever, So, this was the 80s, right? This was 80s parenting. Okay, you would just, this happened all the time. Like you'd ask parents back then, like, where's your son? Or whatever. Like, I saw him last week. I think he's at a friend's house or something. I don't know. Figure it out, right? Kind of a thing. It's just kind of what it was. But I did not appreciate being forgotten. I did not appreciate that no one on the bus checked to see if I was there. My stop came. They looked over, saw an empty seat because I was laid down, and no one thought, should we just look at the seat? Nope. Leave him, right? Bus driver didn't check for kids before you get off the bus. Now, I think that's a great piece of advice if you're a bus driver, just to make sure there's no people on the bus when you're done, right? I feel like that's a good rule of thumb. I don't know if they cover that in bus driver school, but anyway, and I was not happy with the fact that my parents seemed genuinely surprised when I rolled up. Of like, oh, hey, and I didn't appreciate any of that. And so no one likes that feeling when you're a kid, of feeling like, hey, please don't forget me. I exist, right? But also, when you're an adult, that feeling is a lot worse because it takes on a way more painful and a way more serious tone, because there are times, hard times that you go through in life, and you do wonder, has everyone forgotten me? Has God forgotten me? What is going on? For so many of you right now, you're going through a lot of hard times. Some of you are dealing with some grief right now, and it's hard. Some of us are going through feelings of rejection or anger, betrayal, depression, feelings, just deep fears, deep hurts, just all kinds of stuff going on. And here's the deal about all of us. Nobody wants to be a burden to anybody. But it is nice to know when our pain is acknowledged by someone else. It's nice to be noticed. It's nice to just say, hey, listen, I know you're going through something. It's just nice to not feel forgotten. And sometimes in life, we do feel like we're on our own in a dark bus out in the middle of nowhere. Just kind of, this is my life right now. It's just me. I don't understand what's going on, but I feel very alone and very abandoned. And it's a scary place. And for some, this has been a real obstacle with faith, because you're literally wondering like, hey, God, hello? Did you forget that I'm still running around? I mean, I'm going through all these things, and for some of you in life, it's not one bad thing, it's a lot of bad things that are just happening. And sometimes you just wonder, hey, God, do you see me anymore? Like, where are you? Do you care anymore? Is it something I did? Do you even notice the pain that I'm in? Do you see how wrong this situation is? I mean, when are you ever going to help me? And if you've ever felt that way at all in life, then congratulations, you're a human being. But also, this is why we're talking about Joseph, because his life resonates with us, especially when we're going through these really hard chapters in life and we start to feel alone and forgotten. Now, we can't see the big picture of our lives, and we can't really see what the future holds for us. But in Joseph's life, we get to see this big picture view of a life where God was moving, even though it looks like he's not even paying attention. And Joseph also is an example to all of us of how to live our lives and how to make choices when it feels like everything is falling apart. Now, today I'm covering a lot. I'm going to move at a brisk pace, but this week's story is actually found in Genesis 37, 39, and 40. So if you'd like to, I would encourage everyone to read the full story, because I can't really cover all the details, but I'm going to kind of give you the Sports Center highlight version here. But also, if you want to read the whole story of Joseph, it's in Genesis 37 through 50. Now, I will tell you, it's going to spoil the next few weeks, okay? But that's okay. It's a great story. I would encourage you to visit it for the first time or revisit it if you haven't read it in a while, because it's a super encouraging story. But here's the deal. When you first meet Joseph, though, to kind of start this story off, he's 17 years old, which is always kind of a critical age, I think, for all of us at 17. There was a lot of decisions a lot of us made at 17 that kind of changed the course of our lives, right? He's 17. He has 12 siblings. He has 11 brothers and one sister, and Joseph is the youngest, and he is clearly Dad's favorite, okay? Now, I don't know if you have favorites in your family, okay? It doesn't go well, right? It's never a good thing. I don't look at anybody's like, when we started picking favorites, our family got way better, right? No one says that, right? He's clearly Dad's favorite, and his dad, Jacob, even buys him, or not buy, has it made for him, a colorful robe, which he wore around and treasured, that kind of showcased, I'm Dad's favorite. Now, I don't know if it was a Technicolor dream coat like the play, okay? But what we do know is that robe made his siblings jealous and furious. I mean, it just built animosity. Then Joseph starts having dreams where God is speaking to him in these symbols. And Joseph wants to talk about it, but the more he starts telling his brothers about these dreams, the worse that this situation gets. For example, let me show you this in Genesis 37:6. Joseph says, listen to this dream, he said. We were out in the field tying up bundles of grain, and suddenly my bundle stood up, and your bundles all gathered around and bowed low before mine. Yeah, that's okay. Right? His brothers responded, oh, so you think you'll be our king, do you?
do you actually think you'll reign over us? And they hated him all the more because of his dreams and the way he talked about them. Now, what is going on with these symbols? There is something going on with Joseph, but we'll reveal more of that next week. But the thing is, at this point, his whole family kind of sees him as obnoxious. He just starts talking about these things, and you can hear the way he's talking about them. It's obviously like, it's right. And even Joseph's parents tell him, hey, could you cool it with the dream talk? So glad God's speaking to you, but could you just shut up about it because you're causing problems, okay? This animosity grows and grows and grows towards Joseph. And at one point, Joseph goes to visit his brothers who are shepherding their dad's flocks. And when they see him coming, they decide together, hey, you know what we could do? Let's make sure these dreams that Joseph keeps talking about never happen. And as they're talking, as he comes forward, they agree, you know what? Our lives would be better if the dreamer was gone. So what they do is they grab him when he gets there and they throw him into an empty well to basically leave him to die. Now, that sounds a little drastic. Some of you think, that's not, that's a dysfunctional family right there, right? I feel like we could all diagnose that and go, I feel good about it. But in all honesty, it's weird because you got to think about, it sounds drastic, but his siblings felt threatened by the things that Joseph kept saying over and over again. And honestly, there is something about it, that it was causing anxiety about the future. And the thing about Joseph was God was speaking to him. Dad favors him. Everything's tilting his way. And so they just decide, you know what, this is a breaking point for us. There's feelings of fear and jealousy that just hit a breaking point in this family of like, our lives would all be better if this person who seems to be the common denominator of all our problems, if we could just eliminate him. So as they're discussing this, then all of a sudden, a caravan of traders that's going toward Egypt is passing through. And they realize, you know what? He's in that well. If we kill him in the well, though, we're still going to have to cover up the crime. But if we sell him off to these people as a slave, then no one will ever know. He's going to be gone, and no one will ever know. So there's this, it's not really in the scriptures, but it is kind of weird. There's this awkward moment where they have to pull him out of the well. And, Joseph's thinking, hey, guys, not funny, whatever. And it's this awkward moment where it feels like they're going to be reconciled, and then they just tie a rope around him, and they turn around, and they sold him as a slave to these people. And now he is being sent to Egypt, which is far away, against his will, to live a life of forced labor. And that's kind of where we just pause for a second. I'm going to ask this question. What did Joseph do to deserve this? Nothing, really. And let me ask it this way. What did he do wrong? Nothing. Now, was he annoying his family? Yes. He also is a teenager, which is kind of like job description, right? So he's young, okay? He's a teenager. I mean, yeah, I get it. He's getting on people's nerves and he's talking about things and it's just awkward. But he doesn't deserve to be thrown into a well or sold into slavery. That feels like a very harsh turn of events for what we're talking about. That doesn't seem like it fits, right? Then the brothers lie to their dad. And they take that colorful robe and they dip it in animal's blood. And they say, Dad, he was killed by an animal. Could you believe it? And they're hoping, they're thinking this is a win. These brothers we have reclaimed our destiny. And maybe our dad will love some of us like he loves Joseph. I mean, in their minds, we've made our lives better. So here's what happens. Joseph, by the way, is being carted off, and he arrives in Egypt. And once he gets there, he's purchased for labor by the head of Pharaoh's security force, who's a guy named Potiphar, a prominent man named Potiphar. Now, here's what's surprising me about this whole story. Is Joseph's not pouting. He's not in a corner crying. He's not just angry and shouting at everybody. What the Bible literally tells us is that here's what Joseph decided to do. There's nothing he can do about being in Egypt. There's nothing he can do about forced labor. So he decides he's going to wake up, wash his face, and go to work. That's what he's going to do, which is a very interesting decision. Wake up, wash your face, go to work. And then this is what ends up happening. Genesis 39:2. It says, the Lord was with Joseph, so he succeeded in everything he did as he served in the home of his Egyptian master. Potiphar noticed this and realized that the Lord was with Joseph, giving him success in everything he did. And this pleased Potiphar, so he soon made Joseph his personal attendant. He put him in charge of his entire household and everything he owned. And from the day Joseph was put in charge of his master's household and property, the Lord began to bless Potiphar's household for Joseph's sake. And all his household affairs ran smoothly, and his crops and livestock flourished. And so Potiphar gave Joseph complete administrative responsibility over everything he owned. So Joseph shows up, goes to work. It just gets things done. He's like, this is literally, he's thinking, okay, well, this is nothing but lemons. I'm going to try to make lemonade out of this situation. This is the best I can do. And Potiphar ends up promoting him twice. Like almost just instant, like going like, man, this guy is just killing it. He's getting things done. He is helping me. And here's what, to me, I think the mentality was, is Joseph decides, I'm going to work hard, and I'm going to be faithful in a situation that's painful. And I don't know if you've ever been in that kind of a situation where you're like, I can't do anything about how painful this situation is, but I'm going to try to be faithful, and I'm going to do the right thing, and I'm hoping that if I do the right thing, then the right thing will happen. But Potiphar is not the only one who starts to notice Joseph. And this situation happens. Genesis 39:6. It says, Joseph was a very handsome and well-built young man. Now I'm going to go ahead and tell you that every time in the Old Testament it describes someone as good-looking, something bad is about to happen. I've not found it one time where it's like, this person was attractive and things were fine. We just wanted to let you know. No, something's bad about him, okay? And Potiphar's wife soon began to look at him lustfully. Ooh. Come and sleep with me, she demanded. But Joseph refused. Look, he told her, my master trusts me with everything in his entire household. No one here has more authority than I do. He's held back nothing from me except you because you're his wife. How can I do such a wicked thing? It would be a great sin against God. And Joseph finds himself again in a bad situation because now Potiphar's wife is pressuring him day after day to have sex with him. And I'm going to go ahead and just clear the air right now. I know that there are some men that hear this story and think, oh no, poor Joseph, that's so sad. I hope he makes it out of this situation. Man, so sad. No, this is bad for many reasons, okay? Number one, it would be wrong, absolutely wrong for him to do this. It absolutely is a sin against God. It would blow up a lot of things. Also, you got to think about this, had to be tempting for him because Joseph had to be struggling with loneliness, comfort, all the things. Think about all the things that have happened to him and how this would kind of help, make that easier, right? But also, Potiphar was the head of all bodyguards and security in Egypt. So that would be some quick pleasure, but some pretty brutal consequences, okay? So what happens is one day Miss Potiphar finds Joseph by himself, and she says, I think we're alone now. There doesn't seem to be anyone around, right? And Joseph, she grabs his cloak. It's pretty aggressive, right? Joseph freaks out. He actually tears himself out of the cloak and just runs away, right? And again, Joseph's thinking about the consequences of this, like this could go really, really bad. So he gets away, and then she's holding this cloak, and she's humiliated, and she's furious. And so she decides, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to scream rape. So she screams rape, and everybody comes running in, but the one person missing, Joseph, not in there. But she holds up the cloak, and she says, he tried to rape me. This is his cloak. This is my proof. So now, Joseph is wrongfully accused of sexual assault and thrown into prison. Now let's pause our story of doing the right thing and the right thing happens. What did Joseph do to deserve this? Nothing. In fact, what did he do wrong? Nothing. honestly, if anything, Joseph was trying to stay out of trouble as much as he could. He's trying to stay away from anything like this, yet trouble still found him. He's been thrown into a well, sold into slavery, and now he's thrown into prison. I mean, where's God? Where's he at in this story, right? I mean, I thought if you do the right thing happens. But in this story, Joseph does the right thing and the wrong thing happens. And now Joseph is sitting in prison. No one's going to bail him out. There's no Morgan Freeman there to, plan a breakout. Nothing like that. Then the scriptures tell us this in Genesis 39:21. But the Lord was with Joseph in the prison and showed him his faithful love. And the Lord made Joseph a favorite with the prison warden. Oh man, that's so encouraging. You know how your life is turning around? Me and the warden are buddies. And my life is picking up. Things are going good right now. Me and the prison warden, we're on a first name basis. Man, I'm telling you, things are on the up, right? And then it says, verse 22, before long, the warden put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners and over everything that happened in the prison. Man, people are delegating in this story like crazy. They're like, you look competent here. I mean, it's just crazy. But this is what happens. It's obvious that this is not going well. And I'm glad that he's building this relationship with the warden. And Joseph decides, okay, I'm in prison. I'm going to wake up. I'm going to wash my face, and I'm going to go to work. That's what I'm going to do. That's going to be my attitude. And the warden gives him full administrative responsibility over this prison. So he's working and doing this stuff and taking everything that he learned at Potiphar's house and putting it here, and it's coming to pass, But then something really interesting happens. Two guys connected to Pharaoh are thrown in prison. His personal baker and his cupbearer. I would love to have a personal baker. Every time I read this story, I think, that sounds awesome. I would love that. Anyway, I don't know why I told you that. Some of you are like, you look like you got a personal baker. Anyway, so here's the thing. So both start having weird dreams. I love this. Both start having weird dreams in prison. You think you're going to have weird dreams in prison? I think you probably are, right? And they aren't sure what they mean. They're very upset about them. They've gone through this whole traumatic experience. They're having these dreams. And Joseph has had some experience with dreams. So he says, listen, I'm going to ask God to interpret them for you. I'm going to try to help you, okay? And then what happens is God reveals, among a lot of other things, that in 3 days, the cupbearer is going to get his job back and stand before Pharaoh. So here's what they're thinking. Okay, dude, this is going to happen in 3 days. And Joseph looks at this cupbearer, and then he says this to him in Genesis 40:14. Please remember me and do me a favor when things go well for you. Mention me to Pharaoh so he might let me out of this place. For I was kidnapped from my homeland, the land of the Hebrews, and now I'm here in prison, but I did nothing to deserve it. And Joseph says, listen, I'm helping you. I want to help you. He's hoping maybe this guy will help him. I mean, who knows, right? Maybe this will work. And sure enough, 3 days later, cupbearer brought before Pharaoh out of nowhere. They call him out of prison. They give him his job back. All these things go and happen. And you're thinking, okay, great. And then what happens? Genesis 40:23. Pharaoh's chief cupbearer, however, forgot all about Joseph, never giving him another thought. You have got to be kidding me. I mean, in all seriousness, you help someone, you do the right thing, and the wrong thing happens again and again and again and again and again. Joseph just keeps waking up, working hard, trying to make the best of the situation, and the worst of it just keeps happening. Think about this. He shares his dreams with his family. He's sold into slavery as a result. He helps Potiphar, and he's thrown into prison. He helps the warden, and he's still in prison. And he helps this cupbearer. And he's forgotten about. How long? 2 years. Joseph has to sit in a cell for something he didn't do alone for 2 years because this guy just forgot. Now let's pause for a second one last time. What did Joseph do to deserve this? Nothing. What did he do wrong? Nothing. Are you noticing a theme? But yet we keep hearing this phrase. Think about this whole story we've just talked about. Then we keep hearing this one phrase. It bothers me so much when you first read it. And this is it, Genesis 39:2. The Lord was with Joseph. So he succeeded in everything he did. And then again in Joseph 39:21. But the Lord was with Joseph in the prison and showed him his faithful love. Over and over again in the story, for some reason, it keeps sliding in this phrase, but the Lord was with Joseph. But the Lord was with him. In the well, the Lord was with him. On the slave caravan, the Lord was with him. In Potiphar's house, the Lord was with him. Wrongfully accused, the Lord was with him. In prison, the Lord was with him. But we don't see that. It's not how I read the story. I mean, I look at this and I see a man that's been forgotten. I'm like, if this is the Lord with you, I sure don't want to see the Lord without, right? But the Lord was not with him, right? You know, good grief, because if this is God with you, this is not great. I mean, really, instead of a dark school bus, it looks like Joseph is sitting in this dark cell, alone and abandoned, yet the Bible keeps bringing us up. But the Lord is with him. And it keeps trying to remind us in this part of the story, this early part of the story, that you may think he's been abandoned, but he's not. God is doing something. But we can only see the disaster. We don't see what's about to happen. We don't see what's coming. And now some of you are like, Matt, is this the end of the story? Is just this dude sitting in prison by himself? No, there's 2 more weeks of the series, okay? But I'm stopping here because this too often is what life really feels like sometimes. Life is not a sitcom where there's a problem and we resolve it in an hour. And it's nice and clean, right? And the credits roll and we go on to the next. That's not really how life feels. Sometimes, if we're honest, life is just seeing a lot of bad things happen and not enough good. Sometimes it's months of waiting, years of waiting. Sometimes it's just trying to hold on when it feels like everything is falling apart and you are in no control of what's happening. Sometimes the only promise you have in life is that God is with you. That God is with you, that God is for you. But if we're honest, sometimes life doesn't feel that way, does it? Is he really with me? Is he for me? Doesn't seem that way. See, I think a big obstacle to faith sometimes is the fact that people sometimes think that the presence of God means the absence of problems. Well, if he's really God, then none of these things could exist at the same. No. God never promised no problems. He promised his presence in every problem. He promised his guidance in every problem. He promised that no matter what circumstances happen, that God will guide, if you'll listen, every choice that you make in the midst of that circumstance. No matter what chapter we're on, we forget to sometimes that there's an author of our story that already knows what's coming up. We don't see it. He does. And only God can take a series of setbacks in your life and shape them into a setup for a future that he has for you, because things will not make sense now, but it's going to make sense later. Hindsight is 20/20. But sometimes it's just hard to see anything good. It's hard to see anything happening. But only one, God, is the one who decides to do something great in you before he does something great through you. Sometimes there's this work that happens. There's these things that go on, and it just seems like it's never going to end. And it's because he's working in you. You might feel like God has left you, but in reality, he's working in you, and in the long range, he's actually working for you. But sometimes it just doesn't feel that way. We have to be reminded of the scripture. Romans 8:28 says this. It says, we know that in everything, God works for the good of those who love him. So what does that mean? Because oftentimes, right, we just say this to people when something happens. Maybe if you've been a Christian for a while, you quoted this at somebody, and it's kind of a weird way of just being like, well, God's going to work it out, so cheer up, right? But can I be honest with you? It's hard to be happy in prison. It's hard to find joy when you're going through grief. And this verse does not mean don't worry, be happy, okay? We don't need to ignore people's emotions because sometimes you just can't get there. I'm just not at a point where I can get there, and that's okay. We're not going to push people through their emotions. They need to go through these things. We need to go through the grief and go through the pain. But what does it mean? It means that God gives every piece of the pain that we go through a purpose. There's not one experience that he will waste. And another thing is, every chapter has an end. And new chapters will begin if we hold on. What I love about this verse is it's acknowledging that sometimes life is just painful. But God will bring this awful chapter at some point to an end one day and begin something new. And here's what you can always do. You can depend on him even when you don't feel it, you don't see it, you don't know it for sure, whatever. You can depend that he is with you and he is for you. The Bible says over and over again that God is for us, God is for us, God is for us. And I get, we think like, yeah, I mean, like, he's pro me being alive, I guess. I mean, like, what does that mean? You know what I mean? No, he's for you. God is working all the things that happen out of our control, in our control. And he's moving forward with a purpose. And the thing is, this is what I want to tell you. If you will live like God is with you, you will see in the end that he was for you. You will see what all this means and where it's going. But in the meantime, it's hard. It's painful. And what I want to encourage you to do is if you're in one of those seasons right now where it just feels like the rain is never going to stop, the dreariness is never going to stop, everything feels gray, tastes gray, looks gray, and I'm just in this zone. I wish I wasn't here. I feel bad almost for feeling bad and all that kind of stuff, and you're in this zone. I want to encourage you, do what Joseph did. Wake up, wash your face, go to work. Be faithful in a situation that is painful. Do the right thing despite what happens. Do the right thing despite what happens. I always see this happen sometimes with people when we talk about giving and stuff, right? People are like, well, if I just start giving, then one day this Ferrari's going to pull up and it'll say from God on it, right? And I'm like, see, boom, like, so glad I started giving. And they stop giving when they don't see things happen. They're like, my PG&E bill's still high. I'm like, yeah, like, do you live here? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like they're like, I don't know, I started giving to God, but he's not giving back. I'm not getting enough. He's not paying, I'm not seeing enough. We're not reciprocating here. I'm like, no, it's just giving is right, despite what happens. The first time Carrie and I ever gave, you know what happened? It came out of our checking account. And that was it. We didn't get some magic insurance check. Nobody popped up with $1 million. Ed McMahon didn't show up from Publishers Clearinghouse. Man, that's a really old reference right there. Woo! That's for all of the boomers. Love you guys. Here's the thing. None of that happened. And here's the thing. They're just sometimes, like, I mean, honestly, you go help someone, you pay for their coffee, and they're still rude to you. What are you going to do? Snatch the coffee out of their hand and throw it in the trash? I mean, what are you going to do? Well, you didn't do what I thought you'd do. No, you do the right thing despite what happens. Doing the right thing would be easy if the right result just happened. We'd all be doing it. But sometimes you do the right thing and the wrong thing happens. Sometimes you do the right thing and nothing happens. And the Bible just says, do the right thing despite what happens. Because just like Joseph, our story's not over. Our story's not over. Whatever is happening, wherever life has you right now, the one thing you can know is God is working in you and for you. I'm sure you'd love to know how. I'm sure you'd love to know why. But that is the one thing that we can rest and trust and put all of our peace into to say, I don't know what's happening, but God's got it because I clearly don't. And I'm just going to trust him. And when I have to, listen, every circumstance gives you all these choices. These are the choices I'm choosing to make. I'm just going to do the right thing. I'm going to be faithful. I'm going to wake up and work hard, and I'm going to do these things despite results. Because when we live, and it's a choice, to live like God is with us, we will eventually see that he was always for us all along. He never promises no problems, but he promises his presence and his guidance for all of them. And I pray we lean into that today. Let me pray for you. Father, I come to you, and for those watching and for those attending today, Lord, I just wherever they are, we just know that there's some folks right now going through some really hard chapters right now, some hard moments. So, Father, I pray that you will encourage them. That as we even look at this story, and there's just no real encouragement in this story, the one thing that keeps coming up over and over again is that you're with us in every storm, in every trial, in every trouble, and that you will guide us. Father, sometimes we look at our lives and we wonder, why in the world is this happening? I keep doing the right thing, the wrong thing keeps happening. Father, help us to remember that you're in control. You're working in us, maturing us, developing us, and you're working on our behalf in ways that we don't see. So, Father, I pray that at the end of the day, we were faithful in a season that's painful, that we do what's right, and that we trust you with the consequences. We trust you with the results. We trust you with the situations that pop up out of nowhere, that stress us, that scare us. That at the end of the day, we cast all of our cares upon you and trust you. May we live every day knowing and deciding, living out the fact that you are with us. In Jesus' name we pray.